Okay.
Beautiful.
Hi guys, welcome back to Liz and Liz Get Literary. My name is Liz.
And I'm also Liz. We also have guests today in the book room. As you can see, we have
Bailey. Can I name myself?
Yes.
Okay.
Haley.
And I'm Liz. Just kidding.
What?
I'm Abby.
And I'm also Liz.
And I'm Abby.
Yeah, amazing. Liz is being a superhero wife and mother, so she is at her own Liz lair.
I am. So apologies if you hear anything that might be a little not normal, but we should be okay.
Great. Well, we don't know if they're your real children or not, so.
Right. And they refuse to answer my questions, so I think I'm a little suspicious. It's fine.
Amazing. Liz, what are you reading right now?
I'm so glad you asked. I just started The Road of Bones again, which is, yes, it is a reread, but we are doing it for our romance book club. So I'm excited, and I'm excited at what I'll pick up in this reread. Okay. And I'm actually also finishing a C.W. Farnsworth First Flight Final Fall, which is a soccer romance. And I'm having a decent time. I'm not the biggest fan of the female main character. I think she's kind of like, she's very cocky, which is fine. I think that's completely fine. But she's kind of mean about it. And she's not a very likable character to me.
Yeah.
So I really loved her first series that we went over with, it was the YA romance. I really, really enjoyed that. So I'm kind of, come on now. So what are you guys reading?
Abby, what are you reading?
I just finished today a Karen Slaughter book, Pieces of Her.
Okay.
It wasn't my favorite one of hers, but it was enjoyable, and I do want to check out the Netflix series of it.
Yeah. I haven't watched that yet, but I didn't really like that book either.
It just wasn't my fave.
Yeah.
I loved some of her other ones, so yeah.
Bailey?
I am also reading Road of Bones right now for our romance book club. I'm about 50 pages in, and it is a whirlwind first few pages. I am locked in. And I'm also reading The Auction while it's still The Auction. I downloaded it from AO3, and I'm very excited to read The Auction before reading Rose and Chains. Rose and Chains? Yeah.
Rose and Chains.
Yeah.
I'm so excited you're finally reading The Road of Bones. I just know you're going to have an amazing time.
I'm so excited. Biking, that's all I need to hear.
That's all you have to say.
Biking fantasy, that's all I need to hear, and I'm locked in, so I'm excited.
As you can see, at Liz and Liz, we are big fans of Debbie Winters. She literally sits on a throne on top of the rest of my romanticities.
I think I'm about 50 pages into, and the one thing that just stands out so much with her writing is just how well done it is. Sometimes fantasy can come off a little juvenile, a little okay, yeah. But she just, I'm instantly exactly there with them. I'm walking, we're in the forest right now, the twisted pine woods, and I'm there with her. And I can literally envision everything going on. And I'm this is what sets it to that next tier when we talk about Demi's writing. So
it just truly feels as if I'm already getting a sense of this character, early 50 pages in, and just with her little details that she's thrown in. So it's
And I really appreciate her. Sorry, Abby. Abby is not our fantasy reader, so she's just here to be
for the ride.
So hot for the next 2 minutes. One thing I really love about her writing is that it's not really, really heavy world building, but you also do not feel like you don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. It is so seamless. You just live there. I'm just in there. Yeah. I just feel one with the book immediately. Yeah. When I read it, it was so good.
Yeah, there's not a lot of we're here, now we're there. Wait, when we were here, where were it's very well done.
But it's still so complex. I don't know how she did that.
Talent.
What is that like? Magic?
Couldn't be me.
You're over here writing your tornado romance. But that takes talent. Nature's Love is serious business.
I'm sorry, is that the
right.
title? I'm sorry.
That is from
I
Taken by the
wanted to.
Circle, we need a cycle. No, Nature's Nub is that weird tornado romance that Liz read.
Oh.
Do you know about this?
No.
Liz read. Sorry, we are gonna come back. Liz read a novella last year that was called Taken by the Tornado.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a short story about a woman who gets fucked by a tornado.
What?
And he
An
has,
F3. An F3.
yeah,
So it
and
was an F5.
yeah, she couldn't handle all that, big boy.
Oh my god!
It was
wild.
16 pages, and she described the sex, like the F3 gently tore her clothes off. And when she was done, she floated gently down into a lawn chair next to 3 men smoking by a swimming pool
Interesting.
Like
In the nude?
in the
I mean,
nude.
I kind of
With
love
her
that.
bush hanging out. Her tutor cooter was hanging out.
I love that.
I'm full bush. I mean, listen.
I mean, I wasn't mad about it. I was just like,
And what was Nature's Nub? Was that the tornado's penis?
it was the start of the tornado. So, like, when they start coming down, it's like a little nub, and then it, like, hits, and then it goes. And she had a good time, and she had been searching for this. She had tried, you know those, like, tornado simulators?
Mm.
She had tried going in there and getting off. Yeah, it was an adventure. And I said, I could do better.
This is interesting. I did not know this was a thing.
There's also books where people are having sex with doorknobs.
Mhm.
That's called Unhinged.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The sentient s'mores. We can
Mhm.
take you on a whole journey.
Yeah.
I'm just over
and-
here serial killing murder.
I'm not saying that we're into them.
Yeah.
We're reading them for the plot.
Isn't
Yeah.
there also
You know-
like a Shrek one too? Like as
Don't
well?
tell us.
Okay.
And to clarify, my main character is not having sex with a tornado. My main character is a tornado chaser wanting another tornado chaser.
Human,
Okay.
consensual humans.
So like Twister.
Yeah.
There's nature.
Yeah, because we watched
But
the 3 of us went and saw Twisters in theater, and they cut out the romance, and it was very clearly a romance movie.
Yeah.
There's a part where she's literally looking at a tornado, and she's like, "Oh my god, isn't it beautiful?" And he's like looking at her, and he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Come on." And we didn't even get a kiss.
give me a little.
Yeah. Give us a little more.
I thought we'd get a sex montage or something, but no. So,
Gosh.
anyway, Miss G, what are you reading?
We're back, baby. I finished All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby last night, which was immaculate. I have no notes, 5 stars. Everyone I've ever met. If you like thrillers, dark stories, crimes, serial killers, need to read it.
So me, I need to read it.
You need to read it. Yeah, 5 stars. Very powerful stuff. And I'm almost finished with Wild Love by Elsie Silver, which is the first book in the Rose Hill series. Just really toxic billionaire cowboys.
I was gonna text you. Can I borrow it when you're done?
Yeah, of course.
I need
I
to.
know, but
I feel so left
Between
out.
me and Lindsay, you're probably like, okay, shut up. Like, I need to know about this book.
Yes, I'm like, well, that, and then her new one, Wild Side, I think it is, the green one, just came out, and people have qualms. But then someone else said she wrote a WWE romance, and I'm just like, where did we go from cowboys to WWE? Like, I need to know.
That line is really believable, I think.
Yeah.
There's overlap.
There's on the Venn diagram of Republicans, they're both in there, so. But I don't, Ford, to be fair, even though his name's Ford, he's not a Republican. I know this to be true. Yeah, so we're good. So that's where I'm
Do you
at.
think, like, Chevy would be a liberal, or...
I think the only surefire liberal here is Hyundai. I think Toyota's an independent.
Are they all based off of cars?
No, we're talking about real cars.
Oh, I was like,
wow, this
what
is
are
fun.
we like? Because I'm like, okay,
Ford,
Toyota is
Chevy.
definitely could be a human
Yeah.
name. But then I'm like, wait a minute, Hyundai. I'm like, no. Wait
Wait
a
till
minute.
you read about Subaru.
Oh my God.
Subaru's a lesbian, and you're not going to tell me otherwise.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Checks out.
Subaru and Hyundai are like a lipstick
Oh yeah.
and like stud couple.
I feel like Subaru's the stud, and like the Hyundai's like the bisexual. You know what I'm saying?
We have gotten so far off track with these books. We usually tangent really hard for like the first 25 minutes, and then they're like, so we read books too.
Yeah.
And here they are.
In our deep end episode, or no, maybe it was first time caller, we were like 30 minutes in, and I was just talking to Liz. I forgot the camera was even there, and I just went, and we will be discussing a book at some point today.
Please stand by.
But like a lot of people say, like, it's their favorite parts.
You find out a lot of tea in that
Yeah,
first
it's
30 minutes about our lives.
Which cards are dating each other and who they're voting for.
And Liz's tornado novel.
Yeah, very true.
Oh, this is so funny.
I like that we're all reading wildly different books, which is bringing me a lot of joy. One book, I'm going to segue, one book that we all have in common.
Yes.
We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. We have gone off the deep end. Last week, you heard Liz and I give you a nice little synopsis, a nice rundown. We got to what I would consider, maybe you guys agree, the climax of We Used to Live Here, right before everything pops off.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? Liz and I had an amazing idea. We'll bring in our mystery thriller book club girly celebs. Yeah, our local celebs.
Celebs a little much, but I'll take it.
On this podcast, Bailey, you are a celebrity.
Listen, I'm just excited to be here.
We are here for you.
And you're a celebrity as well because people love my hair. And you do my hair,
Perfect.
so
Love
it works out.
Yeah, everybody, this is Bailey. She thrifts bones. She's the one who I will never go in a haunted house with. She will make questionable decisions if ghosts are involved.
She will give entities her address.
It's fine.
I want it to happen. I love Zach Baggins so much growing up.
Oh my god!
I need something. Listen.
Canceled.
Now,
Canceled.
What are you
now
gonna say
I have
now?
different thoughts. I have different
What are
thoughts
you gonna
now.
say? Are you
I'm
a Shane
just
Dawson fan too?
Oh. No. I love my cats too much. However, I'm just saying, maybe not now, but I'm just saying, like, a young Bailey.
I hear you.
Really, Zach Baggins did a lot for young Bailey. That's
Before
all.
we knew the tea.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Before you knew the tea.
Yeah. Exactly.
While her brain was still smooth.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I'm not defending anything. I'm just saying it was a time for young Bailey.
yeah, but Liz runs our mystery thriller book club, and I think you would agree, as a patron of this book club, not a runner, that this is just the unhinged. These are both sides of the hemisphere of the brain of the mystery thriller book club.
The chaos all coming together.
Yeah, I feel like Abby is very logical, and so when we go on like our paranormal tangents and we're like, we would bang the ghost, things like that, probably not. And then Bailey is also like, I petition we bang the ghost. So like both sides of the spectrum here. But one thing we all have in common is when it comes to conspiracies, what we're gonna do is we're gonna spiral. And we're gonna spiral hard.
Oh yeah, and we have.
Yeah. We're gonna be well. We're gonna have notebooks. A couple of us have notes. Yes.
It's fine.
It's actually, it's something, all right. So
Mine's over on a table, but I have it memorized, and I'm not getting up. So just
we've
know.
talked about it for so many hours at this point.
Like, I think, we've
Both
all read
in
it
book club.
more than once. I'm pretty sure we've all read it more than once or even twice.
Do you want to show your tabs? I feel like that's an important thing to hear.
The orange is questions. The orange at the bottom is questions for you guys.
Yeah.
And then the tabs are all coded.
And what's really exciting is this is part 2 to our series, To We Used to Live Here. And we've got a special guest on part 3. And we're just building up for that. But our special guests for part 2 are you two. And I am obsessed.
We're here for you.
Yay.
Yeah.
I'm just excited.
Yeah.
The one thing Liz and I definitely realized when we started deep diving is there's so much to deep dive on. And what does that mean? Are we wrong? Are we right? Who knows? Right?
And honestly, I feel like that's the point. Like, it does, especially being a Reddit original, it's meant to be an open-ended, circular means nothing means everything type of vibe, and I feel like it's the perfect book to just spiral about.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
so it's gonna be a blast. Liz and I had a very hard time fitting even the first half of the book into one episode. So
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
just
because you would like hit one thing and you'd be like, okay, I need to talk about this, and it was almost every page.
yeah, as you saw,
oh yeah,
almost every chapter, at least every chapter has 2 or 3 tabs. It's wild. So to give you two a little bit of prep work, we ended last episode when Eve leaves Heather's house
okay.
and goes into the cabin.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, you know what? The rest of this book would be better with chaos. So,
Because it is. This is when it starts getting like more unhinged than it already was. Like
The moment when I saw like the map on the wall and like connected it to the map in the front of the book, I was like, oh, so this is what we're doing. Let me just adjust my glasses and lock in like I previously said.
Exactly.
I definitely think leaving Heather's was a pivotal turning point in the book for sure.
Yeah. Well, to segue into the cabin, what were your guys' thoughts on Heather? Maybe who she is or what she means to the story.
I kind of feel like she is, because she's like the neighbor, but I also feel like maybe from her talking about her husband and stuff, that she's somehow tied into that he was part of that like metal group at Yale, which was Thomas's father was in. So I feel kind of like maybe they were like really good family friends, because she said she babysat him as like a young kid and everything. I don't know. But then also she knows what's going on in the house. Like I feel like because her house also.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I thought too. I kind of thought that she was almost a part of it as much as the family was, just because of what you said was because of like the babysitting and all of this. I feel like she's not as involved, but she still is the same way that the family is.
Yeah.
How old do you think Heather is? Because this is a question I have. If she babysat Thomas, like I had a babysitter that was like 15.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then like she's obviously like outside, capable of like going on walks and, you know, running her own home still. And so she can't be like ridiculously old.
I would think between like 55 and 65.
Yeah, I was
Because Thomas is described as having like gray flecks in his hair.
Yeah.
So I really put him like mid to late 40s, maybe.
That's where I had him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's definitely not in his 30s, I didn't think. So I guess the question because she said she was a grandmother, I envisioned Heather like late 50s to mid 60s ish.
Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to check because like she gives kind of conflicting energies.
Mm-hmm.
But if she's not fully human, or she's trapped, or her body is just being used, whatever we think it is, doesn't really matter what age her body is. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get your vibes on Heather before we dive in.
Yeah. I think Eve was very much reading the room well when she opted to hightail out of there, for sure.
Definitely. I know Liz and I talked about this already, but I do fully think that Heather was trying to do a replacement ritual.
Oh, yeah.
On her.
Absolutely. Especially after that like phone call with Charlie. Did you guys talk about your like Charlie theories of like which Charlie?
We gave just the people like a disclosure. Like we got a little bit into our personal opinions, but we mainly used part 1 as a story device, like just really giving a full book report on what has happened, who is who as of now, what they're doing, where they're going. Yeah. So we haven't gotten into any conspiracies fully yet.
I will say, now that we are talking conspiracies a little bit, that I don't think we've ever met the real Charlie.
What about on the phone?
I think we've heard Charlie.
Heard her on the phone, but not like met her. Okay.
Yeah, I think the Charlie who came home originally is a completely different Charlie.
Real Charlie is for sure the Charlie from the like misconnection Reddit thing on the very last document,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. And I have a personal belief that the real Charlie is on the phone in a later scene that we're gonna get to.
I agree with that one. I think that's the only time that we hear from actual Charlie, is my opinion. But I think the Charlie that she's talking to at Heather's is the Charlie from that universe. So the Charlotte.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I don't know, because I think Charlotte only knows Eve as Emma. So I think that that's Charlie, just different. Like, because the Charlie we do end up meeting knows her as Eve. Whatever Charlie that is I think the one we get on the phone here. Maybe not this universe, but she knows her as Eve. When we meet Charlotte, that Charlotte only knows Eve as Emma. So I think that I think when Eve opened the door to Thomas and his family, that completely took her out of the reality with her Charlie. Because, like, if you remember, Charlie was like an hour and a half late coming home. So that's why I think and I just feel like the Charlie of Eve's primary reality, base reality, knows Eve has a lot of a lot of anxiety and paranoia. If she was gonna be late, she would have called. So that's why I think we just never meet her. I don't think we ever meet that initial Charlie.
I don't think so. I think the real Charlie potentially calls at the beginning. And then when she enters Stray Dog Mountain Summit, whatever, is intercepted. Whether it's mentally, some sort of a portal situation, maybe she ran into another host or something. I don't think we got the real one. And then the one that shows up has already been messed with, altered.
I just don't see that Charlie inviting the family to stay. You know,
Yep.
like the Eve or the Charlie and Eve's mind. I just don't see that Charlie inviting them to stay, like, at all.
And the way she interacts with Thomas in the initial meeting, she's very much at home with him. So it makes me think that that Charlie kind of knows what's going on, period.
I agree.
And just the whole fact, like, oh yeah, like my brother used to randomly go and hide and you just have to leave them alone. Like, that's such a specific thing. Like, I feel like that's not something normal that, like, kids Jenny's age would do. That it's very weird that now you have two people with the same sort of scenario going on. So that's why I think Charlie is in on whatever is going on. Whatever that may be. This Charlie. I don't think the original Charlie knew anything. But we'll see.
So when we last left off, do we think that that was the real Charlie in any capacity on the phone with Eve in Heather's house? Is there any chance? Does anyone think that?
No.
Okay, me neither.
I don't think Charlie would be irritated with Eve.
No. I don't
She,
think so.
yeah, the one time when she was on the phone, she was like, didn't know if that was her, and she was like very concerned about her because she was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What?
But then this time she's like, I don't know. I feel the Charlie that we know
It's like the fake.
from Eve's POV
Yeah.
would be like, oh my god, why are you at the neighbor's house? What happened to your phone? What do you mean Thomas is still there? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think she would have said, like, are you serious? Like, stop. Like, she was clearly irritated with Eve.
Also, like, do we think... I thought it was very weird that Eve did not remember being woken up by Charlie and told, like... And I also just... You guys are in a house flipping business together. What business could Charlie have had in town that did not involve Eve?
Exactly.
Or that Eve wouldn't know about? Like, oh yeah, of course I need to meet the contractor. You know, like, no. So it felt very, like, staged.
And didn't they say it was like a realtor that she was going to meet? Why would you need to see a realtor like 2 months after?
Yeah,
you
in the
guys
midst
were...
of the flip.
Yeah, like, you wouldn't need to talk to a realtor then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we all agree that's not the real Charlie. And I don't think Eve thought it was either necessarily. I think if she was being honest with herself in her narration, she would have definitely... Well, she did definitely feel something was off. But I do feel she was a little more aware because she hightailed it out of there.
And she questioned it, didn't she? Like, she questioned during the phone call. Like,
yeah, not like, is this Charlie? But like, why is she acting like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my first notes was like phone call with Charlie acted weird.
Yeah.
Because like it didn't make sense.
Yeah, super weird. So then the next thing that happens, as you guys know, because we are unwell, is she leaves Heather's. Shiloh goes into the woods, starts freaking out, and goes into this very, very rickety, sketchy house with bullet holes in the door. The door's barely hanging on by a thread, and the dog just goes inside.
And it has a name. What is
On the steps.
Yeah, what does it
It
say?
says
I feel like that was kind of
old house.
Old house, yeah.
This whole chapter, the document before where they go over the police call, and the document after where we get a full-on info dump about Old House Network, maps, everything being connected, all the definitions, is really when I knew I was going to give this book 5 stars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, halfway. I was like, oh, I'm sad. Like, this is Reddit gold. Like, This is everything I've ever loved about horror and thriller. And it's just an iconic way to turn the whole book on its head. Because up until this point, you're like, what's going on? This is weird. Everyone's acting weird. And I was kind of still on the fence of, like, is this going to be a Strangers situation where they just slaughter even Charlie.
Yeah.
But then she gets to this, and we see all these things, and we learn about all this stuff, and you're all of a sudden you just know that it is so much more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, when we read the police document, I thought when they talk about the 3 men in the white suits.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys seen that movie with Nicolas Cage where the white suits come and they're actually like aliens and it's very crazy? So I said, this is something to that effect. Like, those are takers. Those are if you see a white man in a white suit in the woods, you're not coming back, period.
Yeah. That's some Shyamalan shit. More specifically on brand for Bailey and I, that is Baraska. So there's in Baraska, which I haven't yet.
No, I'm getting there.
But there are women in white, and they are takers, and they decide who gets seen by this other. I can't tell you too much.
Okay.
But there are literally, aren't there 3 of them too?
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
or 5 or something.
Yeah, I think it's like it's like
it changes.
Yeah, it changes.
Yeah. But there are women in white, and that's also when Baraska takes a friggin' turn.
Yep.
So yeah, it's crazy. As soon as I read that police report, I was not well, and I knew that Liz, you were not going to be well either.
I'm not well. I'm not well in any of this. But what really killed me? Can we talk about that document really quick? I thought that the police were a little shady through the whole thing. Well, I just thought all of the townspeople were, from the realtor, all of this. But you see a man clearly in distress, clearly not dressed for the elements, clearly not well, in the woods, being pursued by 3 white men in white suits. And you're like, did not pursue. Not worried about it. Excuse me, what? Because at this point, if the weather is as bad as you say, you could have 4 deaths on your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, they're in on it. They know what's going on. Whether or not they're going to ever admit it or not.
We will get to this later, but at this point, I'm questioning if all townspeople and all lay people, including those cops, are all in on it.
Yeah.
Even if they don't know that they're in on it, if they're a part of Old House Network or whatever is in control of Old House Network.
Because the white...
the white suits.
The white suits. I even was thinking, because the more logical, less paranormal-ish, that they were from, like, maybe the hospital and then, coming to get them. So I definitely feel like, somehow it's, like, tied in. Like, I don't know.
I didn't even think of that.
Crazy.
I was immediately like, they're angels. And
well, I was thinking because he's like, well, I'm
That's
not crazy. I don't want to get, he's telling the cop, like, I don't want to go, like, I don't know. So I thought maybe they had to do with the hospital.
That's crazy. I didn't even think about that.
I love our brains.
I have a less paranormal brain.
Wow. Liz, what's your take on it?
I thought they're like orderlies at the hospital.
Well, throughout the whole book, Bailey may not be super far off. because throughout the whole book, Satan, the devil, a lot of religious symbols are talked about. I mean, even to the stained glass window.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're in this universe, you could be completely twisted, right? To where, because you're so involved with that the people who are really good guys could look like bad guys. So people like the police who are clearly in on it could look like the good guys, but in reality, then, I mean, we've seen that before in lots of plots where it was like, I'm being chased by this 6-foot scary man, and then in reality, that man was there to save you the whole time.
Right, yeah.
So it could be a twisted sort of thing. However, I'm skeptic. I think it's probably a little bit of like what Abby said and what I said. I think it's probably a taker from a mental hospital who's also involved in whatever time loop is going on.
Well, and we know from what we're about to get into that the basement / old house being tied into the psychiatric ward is definitely not far off.
Yeah.
So if that's all to be believed, then it could be people coming, like maybe they started to escape and they're coming to drag them back to old house.
Was thinking, but
maybe not even the hospital. Maybe they're coming to drag them back to old house network.
I mean, I definitely, whatever they're doing, they are stealing them back from wherever they were. Like I think I'm really on the nose that these are the enforcers. These are the ones that they send when maybe someone is like we've talked before about, like when Liz and I did it, like glitching and stuff. When someone is glitching, maybe these are the ones that they're not, I don't think they're good.
Yeah, like when you glitch, the reins are pulled back. Is pretty much what we alluded to.
Okay, yeah.
What are the people in Marvel, Loki? The
anchors?
The two, that's what I was thinking.
I'm dead. Oh.
I mean, listen, if Tom Hiddleston was like, "You're coming with me,"
I'd go.
Excuse me? Arnold Schwarzenegger?
You're coming with me. I'd be like, "Hi, let's go." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I will never survive, because all they would need to do is put a certain mask on and I'm happy. I'm hopping. So now we're watching Eve find this old house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's decrepit. It's all of these things. And Eve being Eve, rather than, well, she can't really help it because Shiloh runs right on in. So we go from a dog that was described as very shy, needing approval from Eve and Charlie, to now just running into empty houses. Empty, we don't know. And so Eve has to go get Shiloh. And that's when we enter this old house.
The part of the book that truly stole my soul. So she gets up to this house, and like Liz said, it's like decrepit and sketchy. The door is hanging off on one hinge. There's bullet holes all in the door. And she's like, oh yeah, probably stray bullets from hunting practice. I'm like, is it? Or was there just a drug shootout? Was it hunting practice? Or is someone serially unaliving people? Like, why is your first assumption, oh, they must have been practicing, let's go inside? You take it away, because you would go in.
Listen, I would not go in, because, listen, bullet holes are people, and I feel like we've had this discussion. I'm not messing with people. I would like to purely mess with ghosts. That's what I'm saying.
She said bullet holes are people.
Like, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, I feel like I would go in, though. But if my dog went in, I'm definitely, like, creeping the door.
Well,
which is why I have cats.
But I'm also, do you guys remember when she was walking up to Heather, she remembers hearing a shot go off, like a hunting rifle, and she's like, that was definitely a 33 or whatever the heck she says.
Yeah.
But for me, what I thought, my first thing was there an attempted murder that ended in like a chase where they were caught in the door? You know what I mean? Like, was that what these bullet holes were from? I mean, regardless, you shouldn't go anywhere that there are bullet holes, period.
No, yeah, why are you going in somewhere where you
you're getting your dog, and then you lead down more, and then you find these maps, so...
And you know what
I don't have a dog.
Right, I'm whistling, like, come here. And if the dog does not come out, I'm out.
I'm going in for my dog.
I was gonna say, you're the dog owner here. Like,
I'm going in. And then you're going to find all this other stuff that's hanging in there, which is...
Yeah, obviously we're glad she went in there because the rest of the book is unhinged.
Because I feel like this part of the book helps it all make sense, but then also throws it upside down, and you're like, wait, none of this makes sense.
Because I think before this, like, I purely thought that this was just a paranormal book.
Yeah.
Like, purely was just like, okay, this is just another paranormal book. Then I saw this and was like cartoon eyeballs to the page.
Yeah.
Yeah, I either thought it was a stranger situation or a paranormal activity situation, nothing else.
Yeah.
So, I fully agree. So she gets to the old house. That's what it says. Literally carved into the stoop of this home says old house. No, thank you. She definitely gets bad vibes as soon as she sees that, but she ends up going in. And as soon as she gets in, Shiloh goes into another room. So then she follows Shiloh into that room, and I'll just read like the quick little description. She turns around and sees that the wall and the door were covered floor to ceiling with maps and blueprints, an insane collage of conspiracy, all coated in dust. Cough, cough, it's been there for a really long time. Eve narrowed her eyes and drifted closer. The maps were of Kettle Creek and Yale, but some were from different states, cities, and countries, yet they all seemed to be connected, forming one big convoluted chart, unified by black ink pathways, arrows, and baffling notes. And she remembers that just 30 minutes ago, Heather told her that a lunatic broke into City Hall and stole all the records. There was no fire. So she's automatically putting that together, which at that point, I'm like, this is not a coincidence.
Yeah.
Clearly, someone in the network told you about this, and then all of a sudden, magically, your dog, who's not acting like your dog, takes you right to the maps.
Shiloh hasn't acted normal since Heather entered the picture, truly.
100%. So all over this giant bulletin board, there's notes, there's little quips, there's like addendums to notes too, like someone had done some trial and error. I think it's very interesting that the first note that Marcus mentions, if you follow directions properly, Red Lake will be dry. At its deepest point, there will be a steel hatch in the ground. A middle-aged woman, which I think is Heather, will be there to provide further instruction. If her son has passed away in the last year, leave immediately and backtrack your route to the last house of refuge. Ensure the woman does not follow, and not is in all caps, which to me confirms the theory that a lot of us think, if not all of us, that Heather was trying to do a replacement ritual and she's very desperate to get out of there.
Like she's been there a long time. Like I feel like she's more of an important character than what you'd think at first.
I fully
That's just
agree.
The neighbor. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I also think it's not a coincidence that that's the only time she sees the Mo that looks like her Mo.
Oh yeah, under the couch.
Yeah,
I think.
with the same white fur or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that house is too important with the red phone and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That scene is just too important
Yeah.
for her to just be a side character.
Yes, correct.
So there's just lots of little things like that. And then he also points out that anchors, which we'll get into in a second, can turn into inanimate objects because he mentions that one of them can take the form of a blue nightstand, which goes on with what you were saying a little bit ago about, like, could the portal be an item?
Yeah.
Like, when Eve puts on, or, like, keeps the locket in her pocket, is that when she entered another...
And it could be because it's always in a different spot. Like if someone's wearing it or it was hanging up above the mantle or...
Yep, and then at the end, Paige wears it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something. Something is happening.
Something, the necklaces.
With items, for sure. There's also areas where time moves slower. Exits go to overworlds. And guides are wrong. And just, like, all kinds of things. All these ramblings that, from Eve's perspective... makes no fucking sense at all. Like, we as readers know there's something going on. But to her, like, just imagine walking into a house and everything about your town and where you live, like the
Yeah.
house you just bought, is like creepy, that I would be so unwell.
It's like, yeah, not it's
I
backward.
mean, I would be unwell walking into that room. But I think what else I picked up when we were walking to that room is she actually thought Shiloh was in a different room. She heard footsteps, like animal like footsteps, in a different room. But then Shiloh ended up being in was it a green door?
Yeah.
And I thought that what was in that other room. So, because then she's led into this room where it's very clear someone has been on a path of trying to figure any of this out.
Exactly. And so, and we'll get into this later, I think, probably, of who we think this person is. She's reading all these things, and then she turns around and she's like, you know what? I'm out. She's like, turns around to the door, and she realizes that there's a tall, big ass man in the house. No, absolutely not. And he's
Man, never.
typical. And he says, "You're not supposed to be here," and repeats himself over and over and over. You're not supposed to be here. And they make mention that he sounds even more scared than Eve felt. So he is not like some big scary perp. Like, he is scared
He's just
as
scared.
hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he also has a ginormous scar.
Note that for later.
Yeah, from his ear, right, to his
Yeah, I
jaw
think too, yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Or down his jaw.
Probably like this right here would be scarred.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was thinking like half of a Joker scar.
That's why I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Like the Joker scar,
Yeah.
but just off to the side.
Continued, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Like I just pictured this area.
Mm-hmm. Which is
Sure.
important for later. That to me is one of the things that's not a conspiracy. It's very clear of what's happening there, because why else would that?
Or then you see like timelines jumping,
Mhm.
and like how
Yeah.
This part where we meet this older man, this old man, made me wonder very briefly if Eve is the bad guy.
Whoa. Say more
Because
about that.
why are they scared? And whether it's because Eve could break it all down or because Eve is something she's not aware of yet. I don't know.
Interessant.
Yeah.
I like that theory too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because at this point, even after reading it 3 times in a month, we have no idea who is who and why they're there.
No.
what objects are like most important. Like I feel like that phone in Heather's house was something, but also like nothing, but also
There's absolutely no way, based on what I know about, first of all, Reddit authors, second of all, horror authors, color is very important.
yeah.
It always is. Stephen King uses it constantly. And it's very interesting to me. Yeah. And like Liz brought up that this house, that exact room where everything was mapped out, in Old House was a green door. And the green door in the basement is where everything gets locked up. And it's not a coinky-dink.
Yeah.
Nothing is
A
coincidental.
lot of green and red. I feel like you
Yeah.
said it.
Green, red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. So this man is begging her to leave. Please leave. Please go. You're not supposed to be here. And then eventually he gets like stern and just says, leave. So she gets Shiloh. And then as soon as she gets out of the house, actually goes to leave, he says, wait.
There's more.
Yeah. Oh my god. And then this is the first part in the book that gave me like full on goosebumps. I like underlined it. And he says, those people in your house, that's not what they look like.
I envisioned Captain America when the red guy like pulls down his face and like underneath is the red whatever. I'm like, are we having this situation here? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's truly wild. And I think it's also interesting this entire time that the man has come into view, he's not looked at her. He refuses to make eye contact with her, which now I'm wondering if you are onto something, that she is more important. Maybe not a villain, but she's way more important than she realizes.
I definitely feel at this point in the book that Eve has experienced more than what her memory is allowing her to have.
I agree.
Yeah, maybe this is not her first loop in that house.
Okay.
And part of it is trial and error, and maybe when you make an error, you have to start over.
Yeah, or when something gets glitched too hard.
AKA the insane asylum.
Exactly. Yeah, so he tells her the people in her house, that's not what they look like. And he is not well, and he says it again, and he says, the family, that's not what they look like. That, to me, seems very intentional as well, saying the family, because it's either A, indicating that this old man has been watching her this whole time, or he knows that in this time loop, old house network scenario, that there's always a family, which I'm on that conspiracy train, that there's components to all of the things, and there has to be a character that is preyed upon by a mother, father, and children, and there has to be dogs as well. And so when he says the family, I immediately circled that, and he says again, that's not what they look like. And she says, I don't understand. And he said, you need to be careful. Get them to leave whatever means necessary. And then he slams the door. And that's the chapter.
Do you want to play a game?
Not Jigsaw. I'm dead. So, yeah.
That's what it gives. Like, he just gave her a piece to the game, and now she's a player.
Yeah, and he just slams the door. And he's like, here's the most important thing you've ever heard in your life. Bye.
Not a fan. I'm going to do my own thing. And she leaves.
Precisely. Then we get where I would like to tab Abby in with all her document notes.
Okay.
We get this, what I would consider an info dump of a document. It's very purposeful. It's the document entitled Hoax.
Oh, yeah.
And we have all kinds of things about the old house and random things.
Like rare documents.
Yep, glyphs.
Misspellings. I don't know why that was so important. There was like misspellings on
Exactly.
stuff.
Is this also the document that has the random capitalized letters
Yes.
too?
Yeah.
That spell out something that yeah.
And then my favorite part of this is all the definitions
Yeah.
too. So, do you want to chat about that a little?
Yeah. I don't have the definitions per se written down.
That's okay. I do.
But okay. But I do have, I mostly just have like the hoax, the rare documents, misspellings, the origins of things are like unknown, the ants, which we didn't exactly talk about yet per se, but just how they don't have a meaning, but they do have a meaning, kind of figuring out.
Yeah.
It just does a lot of like, I don't know. I don't have.
Is this where they talk about the
specifically on.
origin of the ants in this one?
No, that's a different
It's a different
document.
one.
There's just
Okay.
like a
Yeah.
random document that's like all about the ants.
Okay.
Very bizarre.
Yeah.
Um,
So I guess that was my highlight. It doesn't give you much.
no, but
info.
it's just weird.
Yeah.
Because what Liz and I talked about last week too is every document in between these pieces of the story either have something to do with revealing something you've just seen,
Yes.
giving you a hint about something you're about to see,
Yeah.
and really that's it. It's either a past like answer or a future hint, and it's very bizarre.
Yeah.
And
or
so
some sort of like explanation.
Or this almost made it more
Suppose.
confusing though, because you don't understand what these documents are like saying.
yeah, you're getting
I didn't
a
feel like
bunch
I
of
understood
info
them.
at you, but then at the end of the document is when you get these definitions, which to some could just be more confusion.
Yeah.
But to me, I took this as like Marcus giving us like a ledger, you know, like here's what you may have seen or here's what you're about to see.
Yeah.
I was gonna say this. I feel like this document, with it being like literally in the middle of the book, I truly feel as if this document is like the foundation of what this whole entire book is built on.
I wonder if he's gonna have like a series of books like from different people. Like that's something I really want
Like
to know.
different POA or POVs.
Yeah.
Well, he already said no to Mo, so
Yeah, in the Chills and Quills podcast, he did say Mo would not be receiving his own book.
I feel like he's so important in this book, but then also he's not.
I know nothing about Mo.
Yeah.
Not even a novella? Like,
A Mo-vella?
all
Amazing.
he'd be doing is monkeying around.
Like,
See, I need you to appreciate my dad jokes.
I love it. I'm here for it. I love the dad jokes.
They were okay.
Yeah, I'm real good at those. I love them.
I love them.
I'm kidding, they were great.
So yeah, like Abby was saying, and Bailey too, like this brought up so many questions. Like we're halfway through. Half of this you have answers, half of this you have questions. And so I'm feeling like Marcus put this last page of this document in here to tell us what the fuck is going on. So if you guys own the book, it's page 153. I'm not going to go full on reading it all, but we get definitions on terms like guest, guide, tourist, trespasser, anchor, which is what I still believe Thomas is, hatch, shortcut, and hook. We also
What's
get a little
interesting to me, though, about anchor, can you read the definition for anchor, though?
Yeah, parentheses, also known as trickster, spirit, demon, entity, presence, specter, etc. Either a non-human entity, and that I don't think is Thomas, or a host who has been trapped for so long they are essentially no longer human. I think that's Thomas.
Yes.
Some are neutral, some are helpful. Most are incredibly dangerous. Parentheses, anchor motives are often incomprehensible. Seems like they feed on terror, confusion, chaos. And we learned 2 pages prior, or no, a bunch, like 5 pages prior, where she mentions, that's on the big board in the cabin, the anchor of 129 Orello Avenue takes the form of a blue nightstand when observed. So anchors are obviously kind of broad. And from the definition I just read, like it could be a human or not. And I do think that Thomas fits the bill as a host who has been trapped for so long that they're essentially no longer human. And we don't get a full-on definition of a host, which I also think is very interesting because I think if we got a definition of host, it would explain Thomas, and that's why it's not in here.
What's interesting to me is that typically when I hear anchor in terms of something paranormal, it's like something that keeps you in reality, something that like keeps you anchored to that current space. Whereas in this book, it seems like the anchor is the catalyst to all the problems.
Mm-hmm.
So once Thomas as the anchor entered into the house, that is when chaos reigned. That is when potentially the first time things switched. So that's very interesting to me.
Yeah. In this story of Eve, if this is her first time in Old House Network, that would explain a lot of things.
Correct.
So
I feel like that's like when they came to the door, the family came to the door. It's almost like she had to like invite him in, like kind of like vampire-esque, you know? How he's like,
But
oh,
she does.
she does invite him in, and I think that starts kind of
And Abby, you are correct. We do get ants in this document.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think this is like the first time that they like talk about how like I think that this is like the most logical explanation for this like species reemerging over a century later, nearly half a world away, would be that Audrey Gelsheimer had unknowingly transported them on his ship. But I think that
So random.
But that's what I'm saying. What does it have to do with anything?
But before that, we're talking about these like sea ferns and lynxes and all this stuff, and it's like bizarre incidents where these Gelsinger ants, the Eurasian lynx, and the sea spleenwort fern, bad, scary incidents are happening within a 5-kilometer radius of the house. So it's like a bioterrorism situation. Like, people are bringing animals, plants, and ants to Old House Network, and like they are a part of this. I am lost.
I thought maybe it would be kind of a scenario, not so much like bioterrorism, but like kind of like when people travel and stuff gets into their suitcase, like they don't know they're bringing them, and then they do like seeds connected to your boots,
Yeah.
bugs in your underwear. You just never know.
So Eve like walks back to her house, and then she legitimately cannot get back into her house because like the front door is locked, and she has to knock on the house and ask for Thomas and the family to let her back in.
Almost like now she's the guest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Thomas specifically says after he like lets her back in, and Thomas says, we were planning to head out, just didn't want to leave the place unlocked. He nodded toward the window. A lot of eccentrics out in these woods. Can't be too careful.
He knows.
He knows. That Enter J. Cole song. Yeah. I do feel like it's very obvious, and he's playing with her. Like, even locking the door while they're in there is a sign of, like, we are fully aware of how you're feeling and how we are making you feel. Buckle up because you're a player in this game now.
Yeah.
Now you know. So, sketchy. And she comes back in the absolute worst mood, which I think is very interesting too, because the old man just said, get them out, whatever means necessary. So now she's feeling emboldened to, like, essentially bully them out of the house. And this is where she decides to go up to the attic to get the tire chains because she is ready for them to go.
Get out.
That's kind of what I thought. I was just like, this is her being like, all right, get the fuck out of my house
like,
at this point.
yeah.
Like, I don't know who you are,
Okay,
get out.
well, if a man just looked me in my eyes and said, those people in your house, that's not what they look like. First of all, I'm not going back to that house. I've got my dog and my girlfriend's not there. I am finding a phone, even though we know that she can't trust the phones. But if I'm Eve, I'm finding a phone, I'm calling her, do not come home. I'm Ubering to the next big town. Because, like, Yale, it's not far.
Yeah.
So, absolutely not.
You guys know how I feel about situations like this. Like, so even if I end up back in this house with this family, I don't really give a shit if you are going to die on the road in the snow. Get the hell out. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to go into the creepy basement, nor am I going into the fucking attic. That's what I'm not going to do.
Like, I feel like it's kind of her to help them, but also get the fuck out of my house at this point. Like, bye. I'm done helping you. Go.
I have given you enough. You spent the night in my home. I don't give a shit.
And ate my
leave when the weather was
and then you cooked my bacon?
In
this economy?
And also, why didn't you leave when the weather was fine a couple hours ago?
Yeah.
Because the weather has drastically changed like 5 or 6 times in this one area of the book, right? So from the time Eve wakes up to now her returning, we have had chill weather and now bad weather again.
Yeah, literally when they went to bed, the bridge was out. And then when she wakes up, it's good enough for her to take a walk.
Yeah.
It's like melting off the trees, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's
And then when she comes back from Heather's, it's another snowstorm to where it's piling up on Shiloh. Listen, the thing is, I never would have opened the door in the first place to the family. So all of this is pissing me off.
Yeah, agreed.
I have had doorbell camera variations since 2019, since they pretty much first came out. And I have never opened a door for anyone that was not my DoorDash or one of you guys, essentially. Even if it's like my in-law family, like I make Sam go get the door. Yeah. You just don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You don't know who it's going to be, whether they are who
What
they say they are. Yeah.
Yeah, you never know.
We watched the 1970s documentaries, so we know better.
Yeah. Nope. Yep. I've had enough of that. Yeah. So she's had enough too. Eve decides to go to the attic and get the tire chains. And the attic to me is the second scariest part of the whole book. Like, just creepy. The dumbwaiter's moving. We have the scenario where she sees like the weird damn footsteps.
Yeah.
There's things dripping. There's weird smells. No. The lights go off. The flashlight's not working. And this is also where she finds the box in the attic that's marked Charlotte's stuff, parentheses, donate. First of all, who the F is Charlotte? Because I'm dating Charlie.
Yeah, they never refer to her ever as Charlotte.
Not in this
Not in this
timeline.
timeline.
Not in this timeline, yeah.
Yep.
Also, she sees Thomas have a breakdown out in the woods from up in the attic where he like is beating himself and he like goes and hides behind a shed and is like and like hits himself and like just does all the things.
Nosferatu.
Maybe in the movie you can teach the actor to do that.
I would love to see.
The exact face that you just recreated.
Yes,
Like,
we're
yeah.
gonna need to teach the actor.
Yes, and Eve notes absence of color. She notes smells and she notes sounds during these times. So she notes the dumbwaiter, the drips, and all of that, and the smell of damp, decay, earth. And this is when we get our first encounter with the being, I will call it.
Who I believe is Allison.
Correct. And I think this is Allison being essentially sucked dry by this time loop. She's sucked in. She's bald. Her veins are bulging. Her feet are disgusting. I mean, she looks like a zombie, I feel like is what the best way to describe her. And Eve is freaking scared. And so she leaves the chains, is running to the door, but the door slammed shut, which I think was on purpose. As Eve is laying on the door that has now been slammed shut to leave the attic, she's watching this zombie Allison approach her. All of a sudden, the door opens and she falls and slams her head on the railing. And I think this is a scene where she kind of flickers timelines. I think she flickers to I don't want to say future timeline, but a timeline we come across at the end of the book. And then she has to come back.
I think so too.
And I think throughout the book, we have been getting signs from her from that timeline in her head. Like, you have to hide, you have to hide, you have to hide. Because I think that's what is being whispered to her when she flickers. So does someone want to tell what that scene looks like when she flickers?
I got it. Or do you got it? Yeah. You have to hide, you have to hide, you have to. She awakes in a room no bigger than a walk-in closet. Beige walls, rickety bed, a window that overlooks a murky pond. She's been here for months now, maybe years. She doesn't know anymore. She stopped counting when the snow stopped falling in March, or maybe February. She wonders. And that's it. That's all that's on the page.
Yeah.
That's all there is.
And instead of a document, that's what we get. Which, to me, is Marcus saying, this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Very interesting to me. Because she has this big fall. It's a whole thing. And she had just also seen scratched into the windowsill right after she saw Thomas beating the shit out of himself. Scratched in there is don't forget which house you're in. So someone in this home, theoretically her / Allison, whoever that's been trapped up there, has been there for a long time. And then she falls, and then that thing that Bailey just read, that passage, is all we get. And then we just jump right along to Eve waking back up.
To Tom's family.
Yep, to Thomas's family.
Yes, and Thomas is like, you have fallen. I got the Life Alert commercial, like, you've fallen and you couldn't get up. And this is where we see Thomas really start to gaslight her, I feel like, where he's like, now he can use this head wound as a way to skew her reality. Like, you fell. Are you sure that's what happened? And she tells him, which really surprised me, about the figure in the attic. And he's like, well, there could have been a squatter.
Crazy behavior.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. Blah, blah, blah.
And I just think that this is the point in time where we really see the entity that is Thomas rank things up. Because I think he knows what was in the attic, and I think he knows what is happening. And he knows if he does this correctly, he will once again win.
Yeah, I feel like he knows exactly where they're heading. Because when she wakes up, they've started, like, creeping in all these things to really change the house. Like, Paige is literally knitting in a rocking chair that has never been in a house before. And there's Legos all over the floor. Like, they're acting like
they live there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're acting like
they're
this
moving in.
Yeah.
Which we're about to get to. they end up making her believe that they lived there all along. So it's wild. So yeah, she's trying to tell them what was up there. Paige is like, call the police then. And it's just all very weird. And this is when Eve sees what she believes to be her phone. And she thinks that Kai has it. / I think Kai had it too. So
I think that they can just warp things as they will. But she says, I saw the cracked screen, I saw Shiloh and Charlie, but then when she grabs it, it's...
totally different.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah, and this is when Shiloh gets really, really automatically, like, protective and hurts Kai.
Yeah, bites him.
Yeah, bites
Kai,
him.
which takes us back, I feel like, which wasn't that deep, but to like the second document about they're trying to find a home for that dog, the Buckley, that I think bit Thomas.
Very.
And also, I just want to let you guys know that, like, Paige in this scene is all like, you'll hear from our lawyer. You are on Eve's property.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you caused Eve's dog, so good luck with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was like adamant about that.
Yeah. Because she doesn't know anything. Paige.
And then is this when they start to do the family dinner next?
Almost,
Okay,
sort
we're
of.
almost there,
It's
yeah.
very freaking weird. This is like where they're like, you're going to hear from our lawyers and all that.
Eve.
Yeah, all this weird shit. The stained glass window, which Liz and I talked about last week a lot, is gone. It's no longer in the study. It's no longer in the attic. It's just nowhere. And then all of a sudden, right after she hands Paige, quote, Kai's phone, is when she notices that there is no more window. And then...
the dumbwaiter has been fixed.
Yep, also that. And she sees a blurred shape in the house. She can hear footsteps. And the basement door is open again. Shiloh is staring down the stairs, but not, like, freaking out, just, like, whining. It's this part got me, too, because I'm like, you just had this big altercation, the family decides to leave the house, and then all of a sudden it's, like, paranormal activity.
Yeah. And you're alone with your dog.
And I feel like they needed Eve to leave the house so that they could continue.
Isn't this the part where actually she thought Shiloh ran down to the basement, heard Shiloh in the basement, but once she hit the bottom step, she looked up and Shiloh was at the top?
Yes.
So this is now the second time where she has heard her dog in one area and then the dog has appeared somewhere else.
Exactly. So she's in the basement, she looks up, Shiloh's at the top of the stairs, just wagging her tail like, hey, like head tilted and everything. And then she hears someone coming down the dumbwaiter. Mm-hmm. And then she has a prickling whisper that says, run. And so she gets Shiloh out of the house and leaves. And then we get that really weird document about the lost hikers. Recovery is the name of that document.
Yeah. Is that where they find the one hiker who claims that she saw, like, she lost other hikers and it turns into a recovery mission now? And they had found an old house that was actually a safe
That's
place.
the next document.
Mm-hmm. Is that the next one?
I think Recovery is the Lost Hikers and from 2002 in California, one found alive. And then it goes to document the interrogation with the OHAs, the old house, conspiracy, and then like Andrew, Melvin, and Peter.
Yeah, it leads into that.
Yeah, it leads into all that.
Yeah. I thought that this one was like interesting because it specifically mentions that like they were picked off, the hikers were picked off by an unseen force, dragged through what she calls doorways to different places.
Back to our doors.
Right after we see another time shift from the attic, then we're back on the regular, then the basement, then all of a sudden the dumbwaiter is working, and that's when her survival instincts kick in, which could be just what Bailey read. Doorways to different places.
So she hightails it out of there, finally. Yep. I was like, thank you, Jesus.
Exactly. And the last thing to know about that document, I wanted to point this out. I think the words that are Morse code in specific documents are important. And at the end of this document, the Morse code says centuries.
Because
Which,
throughout this whole thing, we have no idea how much time has truly passed.
and
This
I
has
don't
been
think
the longest day ever.
Yeah, which is why it's taken us 19 hours to
Yeah.
talk about this book. Because we have no concept of time, because they have no concept of time. And I think choosing to have centuries be the Morse code there really is just indicating that the time is a loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, the time has no meaning. Time is endless here.
Yep.
Things. I was gonna say, if you do listen to the audiobook versus like physically reading it, the Morse code it'll like freak you out the first time you hear it.
Yeah,
When I about shit my pants. I was like when I realized what it is. So I think it'd be helpful personally if you have the book to follow along to, because I feel like there's little things I missed out on, like the capitalization, that kind of stuff, because I didn't listen to the or because I didn't physically have a copy.
Yeah. Let's never forget when we were on FaceTime while I was trying to learn Morse.
Morse code.
Is his first name Morse? Like, I don't know. I just say, can you just say
Is
Morse?
that his code?
Or do you have
Morse
to say Morse
code.
code?
Oh.
Can you just say Morse? Like, did Morse invent it?
Maybe.
Who's
Yeah,
Morse?
That's why it's Morse's code.
Does he need the credit?
That's
after
not
all
Morse.
this song?
Is it?
It's Morse code.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
can't I just say Morse?
I don't know who Morse is.
He has a code. That's all I know. Anyways, when we were on FaceTime and I was trying to learn Morse, I will never recover from it literally being like...
You're gonna love this. His first name's Samuel.
Samuel Morse! Cute. I will never recover from when I was like, what happens if you type in dash, dash, dot, dash, dash? And I'm just like trying to type in all these things, and then all of a sudden it's like, and my like work computer was on top volume, and I literally jumped.
Oh my god.
I'd
be so spooked. Like, it like spooks you and your hands get sweaty and then you're like, oh, okay, that was just kidding. That was me. It's
Imagine
fine.
if we all had to talk to each other through Morse.
Oh my god.
How would I order Double Dragon?
It would be like, have you seen those videos of like the two AI assistants talking to each other?
No, that's hilarious.
Okay. I feel like those were the big parts anyways. Like, now is when it's like a downward. Like, I feel like the next thing that we're gonna have to tangent on. So, she finally decides to leave, and she gets out, and she sees Charlie. Charlie's home. She's talking to Thomas at the U-Haul. It's all very sketchy, and she ends up convincing Charlie that she needs to leave. And they are going to go pack a bag. So Charlie goes in the house, gets the bag. They go to the Kettle Creek Motel, which I would like to point out is spelled wrong.
Yeah.
From when they see it the first time. It's missing different letters. But from the time that they leave Old House to when they get to the hotel is when we get one of my personal favorite documents. It's not as info dumpy as I think the hoax document is, but the interrogation document is very interesting, and it almost kind of validates what we've kind of been thinking as far as the paranormal. Bailey, would you like to chat about the interrogation?
Yeah, so essentially it's kind of this interrogation of this. I, in my head, pictured this teenager. Is that who it is?
That's how I pictured Andrew Garfield. Maybe that's because his name is Andrew.
Oh,
but
maybe. Yeah.
I just pictured a youngish.
Yeah.
Like late 20s.
Okay,
vibe.
fair enough. All right.
But the friends who were supposedly going through Old House with him were 18 to 19 or something. So I guess early 20s.
Okay. Yeah. So essentially it's this kid getting interrogated by a police because he was picked up for essentially trespassing on this old abandoned property, and he's essentially my friends dared me to go into it, we were drinking, blah 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 blah, and essentially he the cop mentions the basement, and he's like, well, we went down there and there was nothing down there.
Yeah, and to be clear and interject, this is someone watching interrogation footage. This isn't government document.
Yeah, no. This is
which is key.
Yeah, it's
I thought it was interesting that they note, for the first couple minutes, he sits there and he's not blinking, there's nothing upstairs going on. And that tends to happen throughout the interview, so there's specific moments where specific things are mentioned, and he goes blank. Like there's nothing there, almost like something has to check in on him and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And essentially, like, the officer brings up the basement. He's like, we didn't notice anything. You know, what happened to your friends? You said that, you know, your friends dared you to go down there. And he's just like, what do you mean? What happened to my friend? What's going on with him? And he's just like, well, there's no record of you or any of these other people at any of the local high school.
And the cop is essentially like, what are your real names? Because you guys don't exist.
Yeah.
Your friends don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite theory on that, before you continue, is that Kai is Peter.
Mm-hmm. I like that. It's just fun to believe.
Because it would make sense if they ended up taking him on into the time loop, if they ended up using him, because he very much is giving chaos energy. Like, he dares Newt to do stuff, just like Peter is who dared Andrew and everyone to go in the house in the first place.
Yeah.
It's giving Kai.
But do you think it's just like Kai's consciousness? It's not, or Peter's consciousness. It's not, it's like they took his consciousness out of him, sucked it out, and put it into Kai's body.
Maybe. Or I haven't decided. We can talk about this at the end, maybe, but I haven't decided if I think that these are their real bodies or not. I can't decide who I think, if any of these bodies are their real bodies. I can't decide.
I do. We'll circle back. But I also think it's interesting to note too is that at the end of this, after this footage is done, there essentially is like the officer and the people that are mentioned in this video. There's no record of any of them actually existing. So like the name of the officer isn't like, it mentions Officer Kieran, but they're like, Officer Kieran doesn't exist
And has never worked here.
and has never.
And the person that's talking about this interrogation says, like, I reached out to this county police department.
Yeah.
And Officer Kieran has never worked there. And we see Officer Kieran again in this book, but apparently doesn't exist.
However, there also is like also claiming that this like footage just doesn't exist. Like, this is there's no paper trail, there's no nothing, there's none of that. And there's some names mentioned at the end of this document too. And I looked them up on Instagram. They have actual like Instagrams that are dedicated to Old House. What? Like the names of these people that are like crossed out.
Between me and Bailey, we have committed some serious digital terrorism.
Your own horror movie at this point. Like, this is like, and in this timeline, here's what's happening to Bailey. Here's what's happening to Liz.
Well,
we have in this timeline, I think our FBI agents are just like shaking their heads and putting us on a list of probably won't do anything, but keep an eye on them.
Yeah. Just in case they snap. Yeah, so that is this document. And my favorite thing to know about this document and why it was so important to me is Andrew is trying to explain to Officer Kieran about the basement. And as soon as he goes silent when the officer is discussing the basement, it says his face filled with fear, like if he were to say the next words out loud, something terrible might happen. And he goes into how the basement is much bigger than he thinks it is. There's hallways, there's the checkered floor. He brings up everything. The greenish white walls, the hospital. And then they hear a voice in the basement, and he says, the voice said, "My name isn't," pause, "my name isn't," over and over. And they couldn't tell if it was like a man, a woman, a child, an adult.
Yeah.
He just says that it was someone whispering. And what's very creepy to me is the person that's telling us about this interrogation makes note at the end. Sometimes, even when I read back through these notes, I get the feeling of being seen by something ancient and all-knowing. And as soon as he says that, Andrew says in the interview, "I don't feel like myself." And it's very bizarre. The person writing this also makes a note of there's no paper trail of this, there's no record of its background. Officer Kieran, Andrew Melvin, every other name, there are no documents, they don't exist. And it says no records of the, quote, players involved. I do not like the use of players.
Yeah.
Hold on, one more before we go on past this, because I feel like this paragraph, I think, is my favorite paragraph in the whole entire book. The funny thing is, most of these communities can't even agree on what Old House actually is. Oh, yeah. Some say it's a sanctuary for some kind of ancient entity. Some say it's a sprawling labyrinth that spreads across space and time and traps unsuspecting civilians in a maze of never-ending terror. Some say it's simply a metaphor, a mirror into humanity's fascination with long-abandoned structures. There are hundreds of theories. Long story short, when it comes to Old House and the surrounding lore, you'll get a different story depending on who you ask and how many bong hits deep they happen to be.
Which I mean, I feel like that literally, it does sum up the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't answer any questions, but it also, like, tells why, like, the basement and why everything, and portals maybe. Like, it makes it all make sense, but also, like, still, there's no...
and I think Marcus wants it that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He wants you to come...
There's multiple parts of this interview that are mirrored throughout the book, and then in Eve's last interview that we see of her as Eve.
Exactly.
Even the way she acts, the way she describes, I'm pretty sure she says in that last interview that she does not feel well. She does not feel like herself.
Yep, and she does the same no blinking and the same, like, look into the camera and all that. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that we did a little deep dive into that document, because I think it's really interesting because of where we're going. So we leave off when Charlie finally decides to leave. They go to the hotel, but the hotel is spelled wrong. Mm-hmm. They get that weird homophobic lady who doesn't want to give them a room.
Lady, though, she is the only one, I think, described in the book as middle-aged. So is she the guide from the lake? Because she's the one who acts very weird. Like,
and she's
like literally.
Yeah.
And she literally has these people wanting a room, and she opens her book as if she's going to finish it before she waits on them.
Well, and I think she even said that, like, let me finish this chapter. Yeah. Didn't she say something kind of like,
Doesn't she also come out of a red door? We've been talking about, like, weirdly colored doors. Sorry.
She sure does. And what I also found out while I was spiraling with Liz is that this room total is $167.23, which adds up to 19, which divided into itself is 6.66.
How did you figure this out?
I'm a woman in STEM.
I'm like, okay, love it.
Yeah, which
I
I think
math, so I rely on Liz.
Okay, so they go into the hotel. The lady, who I think Liz is 100% onto something about being a guide, charges them $6.66. I'm just kidding. Is Satan. And they get a room. And all over the room, there's Bible verses. There's the pictures of the cross. There's John 3:16. Everything is weird. Everything is creepy. And they finally lay down. And Eve, like, has this whole conversation with Charlie. Do you think I'm crazy? How did we meet? Like, all this stuff where she's kind of letting all of her anxieties, all of her paranoia out on Charlie. And Charlie does have the correct answer, which is confusing to our theory of we've never seen a real Charlie, like, tangibly, because she has the exact right answer, which that is the only thing that's holding me up. I don't know. I have no idea. But they have this conversation, and they finally get to sleep, and then Eve's phone rings, and I'm lying, Charlie's phone rings, and she gets up, and Charlie's green backpack contains the phone, and it says, Eve Palmer calling, and Eve is holding the phone, so obviously, absolutely not. But she answers the phone, and it's supposedly Charlie, which I think is real Charlie.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Okay, yeah. I'm glad we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I was a little crazy.
No.
I will say, though, I get confused if that is the real Charlie and then the Charlie who puts the missive.
I think it's the same person, the same thing.
But clearly in this particular phone call, Charlie knows something is going on with the house and tells Eve to not come to come to the house. But then when we get the final Reddit post, she acts like she has no idea what happened to Eve, like she's just missing. This Charlie really makes it seem like I'm here right now with Shiloh and I'm not okay, which is what then gets Eve to come. I think this Charlie, I used to think this was the real Charlie. I think this is the house. I think this is whatever entity runs the house, like luring her back.
I'm into that too.
Agreed, because her phone's not with her, so she could have left the phone there, like, in her house.
Well, and items can be anchors, which we learned. So
yes, and I just feel that if this was I think the original Charlie is the one in the last Reddit post, but this Charlie speaking to her is acting like she's tied up and she is not well and she is hurt, which is why Eve's like, fuck that, I'm gonna come get you. And I feel like that would not cause then the Reddit post at the end. The Reddit post at the end is very much like, what the hell just happened? And this is, I'm here, I'm in the basement, I'm not well. Get away, don't come for me, which is then they know, because they know Eve, she's going to come.
Exactly.
I think you've convinced me. I think I've changed my thoughts.
And honestly, like, yeah, the more we talk about this, whether it's just me and Liz, me and you, or all as a group, like, I can be convinced of a lot of things because we are all very smart and very into conspiracy type things and serial killers and thrillers. And so it's so easy to convince yourselves. It's a whole thing.
Can I add a little?
Yes.
Are we at have we hit document 16 yet?
We're at document ink blot.
Oh, okay. The next one after ink blots. Oh, I just want to talk about that one. We'll
Perfect.
get to the next one.
Slay. We're almost there.
Okay.
So she is really freaked out by the phone call and she decides to go. So Eve has to go to the gas station. Cash only, pay inside. There's a whole thing. And
she's barefoot, runs into a cop.
Yep, runs into a cop and she's barefoot. But when she's in the gas station, the only thing really to note about this part is she keeps hearing the clerk say, "Do you want religion? Do you want religion?" And then eventually she like snaps out of it and he's like, "Do you want regular gas?" But he says, "Do you want religion?" multiple times.
Which I feel like throughout this book there is little that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she sees the cop. She goes out. She gets the gas. She leaves. Then she gets pulled over by the cop, naturally. And he just asks her when is the last time she slept. Very bizarre. And then he wants to know where she's going. She gives the address. And then all of a sudden he like changes kind of vibes and is just like, okay, well, all right, Evelyn Palmer, make sure you get some sleep. And then lets her go. But then, as she is about to drive away, she hears on the cop's radio that there's a BOLO alert on her, essentially a bench warrant out on her. So someone's called and they want her to be brought in. So she decides to pedal to the metal and not stop. And that's when Liz, she sees a child wandering across the road when she gets onto Stray Dog Summit. Blue jeans, white t-shirt, navy green boots. On a reflex.
And the child does very weird things.
Yeah, so she slams on her brakes, and then the child's only like 100 feet away from her, standing on the shoulder on the right side, and then her arms shoot straight out to her sides, her wrists are dangling like she was tied to an unseen crucifix. She holds this pose for 5 seconds, then her arms drop. Then the girl takes 3 steps backward, freezes again. She spins to face the woods, a mechanical movement like a soldier pivoting during a march. And then she swivels again, facing Eve. And without warning, she breaks into a sprint towards Eve in the headlights. And then right before she's going to run into Eve, she swerves to the right, scrambles up the hill, and goes into the woods. Like, that's the scariest thing I've ever heard.
I think that was a ritual.
Explain.
I think this whole situation with this person is a ritual.
Oh, I'm wondering, because there's the thing in the beginning with the map that's like, there's a little note in the map first of the book that's like, Open and shut this closet door 3 times. Take 10 paces backwards. Wait for 5 minutes. The door will now open to a staircase. So I'm wondering if she had to do like a fun little turnaround moment and a, you know,
She
3
do the
paces.
hokey pokey.
Yeah, turn yourself about or the
No.
Because even as Eve has given chase to people before in the woods, I don't know if it's this specific person, but they do weird things. They go around a tree a couple times, and they go this way and this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's literally never just a straight shot. And I think you have to do specific things in specific realities. Like they say about the lady in the Red Lake. Like if her son, it's like, you can only go to this level if it's this way or this way. And I think this is a situation where you're looking at a stray who's trying to get out of her own reality. I think this is everybody in their own reality.
Timeline.
Yep.
And it's like you're like pivoting, trying to figure out how to get there, like a frozen video game character. So creepy. So she literally says, "Not my problem," and just leaves and goes back to the house. She stops.
I wanted that energy this whole book.
Yeah.
Not my problem.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. She gets to the edge of the yard. We make sure to note, which I think is very interesting, she reaches into the cup holder, wraps her hand around Charlie's necklace, feeling the cold brass surface against her palm, and tucks it into her pocket. And then a few paragraphs later, it says, despite every bone in her body telling her to run, she steps into the foyer.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then this is the document names that you want to talk about.
So I don't know if you guys looked up, maybe it's common knowledge. I was not aware what like capgras means.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like looked that up, like it's a disorder or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that was kind of important just to like know, because it kind of makes sense with like in the hotel or in the motel, is that it's a rare delusional misidentification syndrome where individuals believe that loved ones or familiar people have been replaced by doubles or imposters. So it was a condition that was like,
yeah,
I just thought that was like very interesting because I'm like, that also plays into a lot
of... It perpetuates all of our theories.
Yes.
The fact that
like, is it a mental disorder?
Yes.
Is it psychological? Is it...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys also ever heard the theory that if you were to meet yourself in person, you would not recognize yourself? So it could be that Eve has met herself in one of these timelines.
Yeah.
And she doesn't recognize herself.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
Piggybacking off of Abby, so this whole document right here, which is very purposefully placed right before she goes back, and we end up getting the ending of this book that's batshit, is a case study. And you're like, why would you put a case study right here? This is the climax of the book. Like, this is a big showdown about to occur. What are we doing here? And it's a doctor basically saying, like, this patient's reality was being replaced with another one entirely. And this doctor in Sweden or Norway, got his license essentially revoked and, like, pulled off this study. His grant funding canceled because he ended up finding, in his opinion, that it was real.
Yeah.
And so in the footnotes, the scribbled margin note was this really long, like, Norwegian paragraph. So naturally, I looked it up. And I'm not well. Do you know what it says?
No.
I can't wait to tell you.
Okay, I'm ready.
So just keep in mind that this is a doctor's notes who is studying someone
he's a psychologist,
who had Capgras delusion, which is the definition that Abby just wrote, right? So in the footnotes of this doctor's findings, it says, the patient failed due to intervention.
I love this. Okay, I feel like everyone needs to physically read it.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to go through and physically reread
You can
it
borrow
over
my copy.
audiobook.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's just so many things like that like, they say it in another language.
When you were in the audiobook, did it say it in Norwegian?
I don't remember. But I feel like there were some different I feel like either maybe skipped it, but there were some things in other languages. So I just didn't know what they were saying.
Yeah. I think that was... Because it's not like a situation that we've been talking about this whole time. Did we see Charlie 1, Charlie 2, Charlie 3? This patient could feel himself turning into a different person and was removing parts of his own body because he was convinced that he was turning into someone else.
I want to know how they convinced that doctor that they were also in a simulation, or not a simulation, another reality, because it kind of reminds me of like Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, where she deliberately had clues so that she could alert people later or as she went back in the timeline. And
Exactly.
so I want to know, how did you convince them that you are in a different reality?
Yeah, very weird. So this is when, like the old saying goes, shit hits the fan, essentially. So she gets back in the house. The end of that document is literally just the Norwegian. So that's fun for everyone. She goes in immediately. When she gets into the house, she sees the table set for 6, placemats, dinnerware, all that. And then there's a vibration in her pocket, and it's the phone that she stole from Imposter Charlie's backpack, which Eve is claiming that she is Imposter Charlie. So I do feel like that kind of debunked our own theory right there. I never really put that together, but like I think he's just telling us that wasn't real.
Okay, yeah.
So, and it says unknown number, and she answers, and then it's fake Charlie from the hotel. I'm wondering, like, I don't know. I have questions, but she's like, Eve, where are you? Are you there? You can tell me where you are, blah, blah, blah. And she ends the call, turns the volume off, and then she turns around, and now at the table that she was just looking at, a shadowy figure is sitting, its back turned to Eve, and its head was craned forward at a sharp angle, slumped like a puppet whose strings had been punitively cut, and now it was motionless, not even breathing. So here's my theory. I have sticky notes for this. Okay, so I think that Eve was not supposed to be in the house yet, because we are about to hear someone say that to her. I think that little girl that she just saw outside was supposed to either scare her away. She thought that because she followed the old man earlier, that they thought she would follow the little girl into the woods. Or I think they thought that whatever that little girl was trying to do, if she was trying to do something, was going to work. I do not think that she was supposed to be there. And they make very purposeful mention of Eve not parking in the driveway. She parks on the edge of the property. So I don't know if maybe the driveway was a portal or a certain level of the hill is the doorway. But I think that is an off-the-clock demon. A demon on his lunch break. Because why else would she turn around and it's just sitting there? And he makes mention, like a puppet whose strings have been cut. Mm-hmm. It was not ready. It's like when you ride Space Mountain with the lights on. Oh. It was not ready for her yet.
I mean, that makes sense.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so then she turns and looks at it, and it's just like, literally, having a break.
Have you guys ever seen the episode of Criminal Minds with like
yes,
the puppets?
Whatever it is, yes. I've seen every episode.
Yeah. Oh god, that's all I can think about, and it's just chills.
It just reminds me of the Country Bear Jamboree at Disney World.
Oh, don't ruin that for me! I love the Country Bear Jamboree.
It's fun.
I know, and they're taking away the Muppets too, and I need to have strong words with the mouse himself because I just. Sorry, this is not the time or place to talk about my strong feelings about the Muppets. I'm so sorry.
That's another episode.
Yeah.
That's for you to do.
Yeah.
You can start your own podcast and just call it
Unhinged Muppets.
Pepe Lescron. What's his name?
Pepe LeBron?
Lescron. So she sees, obviously, whatever that shadowy figure is, and then she's inching away. She bumps into a table, and the figure, with a sudden gasp, jolts upright. And he says, as if forced into position by unseen hands. So whoever Thomas, if Thomas is being controlled by something else turns on, punches the clock. Your lunch break is over. She's back. And it sits there, pinned straight for 3 seconds. And then, with arachnid speed, darted, vanishing into the shadows.
This feels like...
Yeah.
And also, and so Eve is like thoroughly freaked out at this point, right? And she starts to move as well. And that's when we hear Charlie again, which is why I think.
Real Charlie. It says real Charlie.
But what I think is this is the house. The house is like, oh, she's here. Let me lure her to where I want her to go, which is that upstairs bedroom.
It's go time.
It's go time. So I don't think we've ever met the real Charlie. I think that the phone call was this entity that's now luring her upstairs.
Exactly. Yep. So she goes upstairs and she goes into Allison's supposed bedroom and she hears, quote, Charlie. Once again, every fiber of her being wants her to run. And someone is standing in the room in a hospital gown from the attic, the same woman. A strange shaking movement is happening, somewhere between laughter and crying. She takes these creepy steps. Everything is getting creepier by the literal second. She's taking these involuntary steps, it seems. So he's literally telling us, like, we're trying to come up with 97,000 theories, and he's telling us involuntary. The one downstairs was a puppet. Like, literally, it's like, oh, the house is alive because she's here. It's giving Monster House. And so the woman says, you have to hide, you have to hide. And it says childlike. And she's holding a hammer. And so goes down the stairs. Front door is locked. She ends up
The
going
windows are barred. The windows are barred. She is
There's
not
never been
able to
before.
leave the house at this point.
Yeah, where else are windows barred?
Jail cells.
Jail cells, mental hospitals,
Mental hospitals.
a lot of places.
Doesn't it also note that she specifically tries the door and
Yes.
cannot get out right
Yes.
now too?
Yep.
Like the door is locked from the outside.
Yanking back with all of her weight,
Mhm.
she says. Yeah. So she's trying to get out the window after that. And then right then the woman's voice is whispering 15, 14, 13. And she gets to 4 and Eve goes down to the basement. But it literally says bare footsteps, unnaturally fast, skittered down the upper hall. They moved with a relentless mechanical pace, like a typewriter. And so Eve bolts all the way down the stairs. And she forges ahead and she spills into an open space. She can see brick pillars, rickety beds, and a wheelchair. So she has entered what I believe is that, the psych ward. And in the far wall is an olive green door. And there's a creepy glyph, which is the ring of eyes band symbol, the circle with intersecting lines. Something tells her it's not a good idea, but she goes in there anyways. And it's a low ceiling room filled with piles of clutter. And there's countless paintings, so like oil paintings, dirt floors, earthen walls. It's like not really like a room at all. It's giving very much like outside, like nature-y to me. And she keeps seeing paintings that Thomas's mom apparently, like she's wondering if she painted them. And he notes that they're very much like American Gothic, which I thought was very interesting. Like the whole like Norman Rockwell of it all. Like wanting to look like the perfect family, and how in every reality there's a family being a theory. So creepy. And it says boy and girl, a severe older looking couple, and then there's a boy that's the spitting image of Thomas right down to his perfect teeth. And the sister looks like Allison, but then she squints and she thinks that Thomas looks out of place, like he was painted there after the fact by a lesser artist. His dimensions weren't right, etc. So she like swipes her hand on it and it leaves a pink smear where his jaw used to be, and it looks gory and mangled. So that's a fun foreshadowing for everyone. And then she sees a bunch of picture frames and comes upon a red gas lantern that's hissing and flickering. And gas, when it hisses, is obviously not good, which goes back to the previous documents at the beginning of the book about the fire at the mental hospital in 1945 or something. Which circles back to my theory that in this timeline, Eve starts the fire in another timeline at the mental hospital in 1945. So scary.
Because she's also following ants at this point, which
Yep.
I think the ants, which we've talked about in the document, are attracted to the energy that these portals give off.
And they're from
And
a different place, the
Yeah,
ants.
and that's why they gather around all the different ways where the energy shifts into a different timeline.
What if the ants represent like the OG timeline? Because like the time that the ants appears is when like the everything is like in the original timeline that like, you know what I'm saying? Because like she'll see him later on and like all other, and that's after. Okay, sorry, that's a theory to pose to the. Sorry.
Yeah, that's gross, but you're probably right. And then she sees a bunch of photos with a bunch of families, over and over and over and over. But Thomas is not in any of them, which takes away from the theory that I love that Thomas has been trapped there for a really, really, really long time. Because young Thomas is nowhere to be found. And if
Unless he takes many forms and he's
Exactly.
not Thomas. But I think these are all of the families he's infiltrated.
I could definitely see that because, spoiler alert, we cracked all the Morse code. And it's the old man with the scar, aka the cabin man, has lived in the cabin for centuries and goes by many names. Many different names. So, it's convoluted for sure, whether Thomas was stolen at one point or like if it's like a Buffy situation where that little kid is the anointed and like he just was destined to be.
Because he was like a lost child, right? Like
Yeah.
he was.
Yeah, the Heather says like that when she was his babysitter, like he was always like aloof, basically.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense. So, yeah. Then she sees another like logo picture of Ring of Eyes, the band, again. And it has that same symbol that Allison carved. And there's a man playing guitar, and standing between this man and his wife, who has big green eyes, is a girl who looked 14 years old, who looks exactly like Allison. And there is a dog, a chocolate lab, that looks like exactly what Buckley, who Thomas claims is his dog, looks like. And then she sees a letter that Allison had written to herself that says, "You are not who they say you are. Thomas Faust is not your brother. He has been living," and she crossed out living and wrote trapped here, "since long before the house was built, before the trees were planted. He changed your memories, warped your family, forced himself into your life. Despite what everyone around you says, your name is not Alina," which is what Heather said it was. "It is Allison. Allison Faust. Your father is Elijah and your mother is Vera. The religious zealots who replaced them are not real. They are mimics. They may look like your parents, but they are not. Never forget that. Thomas, or whatever force controls him, wants to drive you mad, wants you to stay locked up here forever. He's making you see things, making you doubt your own sanity. He's pulling you into a labyrinth that you might never escape. It's like quicksand. The more you fight the charade, the worse it gets. There's only one way to stop it. You have to play along, wait for the right moment, then make Thomas angry or afraid. Do something extreme that will make his mask slip. Make him show his true face. Then you strike."
I like that. Like, I don't know. I feel like that really helps put it in perspective a little bit. Yeah.
And then did you guys talk about what like Faust actually like stood for? Like the last, yeah.
I can't remember, so tell the people just in case.
Just Faust is like the name of a protagonist in like a German story of a necromancer who sold his soul to the devil for ultimate knowledge and worldly pleasures.
And like we've talked about multiple times, this band, Ring of Eyes, they are compared more than once to like Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, all these very dark satanic panic bands that were very much, which I mean, I'm not saying is not a sleigh, ritualistic music.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's very interessant that all of a sudden he's replaced by a religious zealot. Elijah is.
Yeah, and I also think it's important that the parents of this girl with the big green eyes are clearly Thomas's parents, but they're like drinking and rugged, and it's very clear that what is it? Accusation that they have been replaced is very clear because they were completely different. She's learning guitar. They were, it was clear that this was
Like they
all
were
different.
wearing band tees and stuff. Like you're
Yeah.
saying, yeah.
And somehow she gained or had enough consciousness to be able to write down and figure all of this out, which I thought was amazing because it's very clear it's a very confusing reality shift that Thomas, who has been around for centuries, is able to do.
For sure. Yeah, it answers some questions and it gives you some more, just like what we're
Always,
used to.
yeah.
Yeah. So, very creepy. Then she sees Mo, the monkey, white fur, blue overalls, her Mo. Very creepy. Then she sees Charlie, but it looks nothing like the Charlie that she knew. This was probably the grossest part of the book. If you ask me, I can do like gory, like kill people violence when I'm watching and reading things, but like, I don't.
Bugs freak me out. Anything to do with bugs freak me out.
Yeah, so Charlie is standing in a macabre way, and there's ants circling her bare feet.
Yeah.
Hundreds, maybe thousands, fanning out like a slow spinning vinyl. It seemed like this Charlie has been there for centuries, like she was a part of the house itself. So Eve is like, whispers Charlie, and then her eyes stay shut, but her lips and mouth open with a wet sound. And then, with an alarming speed, the ants were upon her. They go up her legs, her torso, fingers, arms, rising like a coat of liquid metal. And then the ants wedge themselves between Charlie's eyelids into her nostrils and mouth. They squirmed their way between her teeth and gums. And Charlie is just still, unfazed. And then the ants are moving faster and faster and faster, entering Charlie until only one remained. Bloated and wriggling, stuck between Charlie's two front teeth.
Oh my god.
Its needle-thin legs kicked and writhed until it slipped through with an audible schlick, is what it says. And then Charlie's eyes open. And she's, like, not normal, obviously, but she's not covered in ants anymore. So, and I have a question after this, but the craziest thing when I read this was, what are you doing here, is what Charlie says, and she looks afraid of Eve. And then Charlie says, Eve, you're not supposed to be here yet.
Which takes us back to she wasn't supposed to be there yet.
Yeah, it was like a haunted house off the clock.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is what you guys think about why did the ants have to enter Charlie? Because that's very purposeful. And it's only after it gets there.
This is the form that the great entity of whatever it is took was Charlie because it was luring Eve. And that is the energy that these ants are attracted to.
I don't like that answer, even though it sounds right.
Yeah.
It's scary. Ew.
Like, I know that I just said, 10 minutes ago that, the ants were in the correct timeline, but now I'm like, no. I think it, no, I'm convinced. I think you are correct.
Every time someone tells me something, I think they're correct.
Yeah.
In this book.
I think the ants are showing, when you see the line of where they're all going, I think they're following the trail of the entity, right? I think this entity leads some sort of power surge or something that is fuel for these ants. And so that's why we see them everywhere, but they're in a lot of certain places in the house, right? And then they go after Charlie because the being knew the only way to get Eve where it wanted is if it took form of Charlie. And so I think that's why they all, and then it's like, shloop.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Which goes back to the theory of we've never seen the real Charlie, because what if the real Charlie, like, got home from work one day before Eve or something, and it took her then, and in the beginning of the book, when you see all the ants trailing back to somewhere Charlie or Eve hasn't been yet, Charlie could have been back there already. Because the ants are trailing at that fast speed at the beginning of the book.
I believe that Charlie has no idea what happened to Eve. I think Charlie is fine in the original timeline. I think because that's what I get from the Reddit post. I think as soon as Eve opened the door for Thomas, she went to an alternate timeline and has never been back. And Charlie has just been played by the entity in multiple different forms. And the reason that it had to lure her back to the house is because it probably cannot stay in a form such as Kiernan, Charlie at the motel for very long because it needs the energy from the old house.
Agreed. Well, and it seems too like towards the end of the book, it's like a woman is the problem, which is who I think we saw at the beginning, whereas a crouched down figure that like stands up or whatever. Because then when she's upstairs, Allison says she's almost here, you have to hide. Then when she's downstairs after Eve is Ant-Man, then Charlie says she's almost here, you have to hide. So then Eve goes further down the hallway. Charlie follows her, and this is when she gets into that weird room. But that is additionally when the lantern slips from her hand, crashing to the tile with a shrill crack, which could be when the fire started in the other timeline, because she drops the lantern. And then, yeah, she hides in the closet. It's very creepy. It's the hospital gown woman, again, still holding the hammer. And she gives up because she doesn't see Eve. She turns around, and then Eve's bitch-ass lungs, she has to gasp. And then, with a slow ratcheting movement, she looks directly at Eve. And then she invades Eve's mind, which I thought was also a very interesting thing to do at the end of this book. She sees all of Allison's lifetime, which is why I believe everyone was telling Eve to hide, because it was about to be maybe a ritual replacement, or replacement ritual.
That's exactly what I think we're witnessing, is Eve taking Allison's place in the timeline. So Allison will now be no more, but Eve will have Allison's memories.
And she'll be Emma.
And this is when she turns into Emma. So now she is Thomas's sister in the timelines.
Yeah,
Allison will never be mentioned again.
Yeah. Yep. She literally starts with childhood Allison, with the parents from the photo, Elijah and Vera, all this stuff. And then you see in Allison's memories when Thomas wanders out of the woods and onto their property. Just like that little girl wandered into the woods before this whole chapter thing.
And they invite him in, and that is when everything happens.
Exactly. And then she stabs Thomas a million times, screaming that her name isn't Alina, all that stuff. And Eve is just watching all the memories, and it says that it feels like hours. And then Thomas comes to the basement, opens the wardrobe, almost. She thinks he's going to. He picks up the hammer. He just hangs it up on this tool wall, basically, because the house is different again. And so I'm thinking, like, is that the ritual replacement? She just needs to lock eyes with the real Eve, or did she have to be in the wardrobe?
I think a wardrobe is the portal.
Well, and also, doesn't she mention in the beginning she like sees a wardrobe with eyeballs?
Yeah, and then she opens it. And
I think this is it. She's seeing her. She saw herself in there, but before she could open it, different timeline.
I agree.
Leave.
So then he puts the hammer back. Thomas goes up the stairs, and then Eve does not remember exiting the wardrobe. Then she just glides across the room and cracks open the white door. But when she entered that room, it was olive green. And then all of a sudden, she's Emma.
And she goes upstairs, And she thinks if it wasn't for the flat screen TV, she would be in like a 1950s, 1960s home. But it's very clear a family lives here, and the family is Thomas's family. And they're looking for her. Thomas approaches her and is like, you need to chill out. Why do you have a hammer? Like, and it's very clear that he is portraying her as his sister, which is now why I think she replaced Allison in the timeline. And Eva's kind of smart in this. She's like, I have to play along. And so she plays along to an extent. And I want to note here that Jenny has fear in her eyes when she meets her as Emma for the first time. So there's something with Jenny. Jenny knows some things that I don't know exactly what they are. And Emma's able to keep her facade up until Paige is wearing the locket.
Yep.
And then she breaks character, and then she attacks Paige as Emma, as the sister.
Yep.
And she stabs Paige in the exact place that the original timeline Paige had a tattoo.
Yep, exactly. Like to the dot.
But she doesn't remember stabbing her. I thought that was very interesting. So it's like she almost blinks and things have happened that she wasn't aware of, because
Yeah.
Paige stabs her in the thigh, and then suddenly she's been stabbed as well.
It's almost like if this was a replacement ritual, she's very freshly replaced, so she could be glitching.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think also maybe another way to break the time loop potentially is to die. So I don't know if we'll see Paige again, but we are now going to see the real Thomas.
Yeah, before we see the real Thomas, we randomly get an excerpt of an obituary.
For Elijah. Right?
And the obituary is for Elijah Faust, which is Allison's original dad. And it mentions in the obituary the band Ring of Eyes. And then they mention his late wife, Vera Krause, who died first. That's interesting to note. They purchased the home on Stray Dog Summit. And then it says he'll be deeply missed by all who had the pleasure of knowing him. And then the very last sentence says he is survived by his daughter, Allison Faust. And
So she has reset things for her.
Yeah. The Morse on that document is many, which I'm taking as that was a successful replacement ritual. We get this obituary immediately after that, indicating to the reader that Allison made it out, survived. And now Eve is Emma / Alina / Allison / Eve, and that's why it's many is the Morse.
Mm-hmm.
Morse code.
Even Auntie, don't they call her Auntie? I mean, obviously being Emma, but
still,
Allison, but
yeah, it's all very weird.
Yeah.
And then Liz, like you were saying, we get the real Thomas, and the big old fight occurs.
Yeah, I do think he was actually upset when Paige was hurt.
I do.
He has a very loud, big reaction to that. I think the entity gets attached to certain beings, and I think the 5 of them, Paige, Kai, Newton, Jenny, have been in many lives together, and he's attached. Eve manages to run upstairs into the attic again and thinks she's gonna get out. But before she does that, doesn't she injure Thomas really bad?
So she kills Paige, and then Eve is trying to run away, and Thomas is like described as guttural moaning, screaming, punching things, breaking things. Like he is not well. She tries to go upstairs. She tries to leave again, and she can't leave. And then she goes into Allison's bedroom, and the light is on. And then she sees Allison again, standing in a far corner, a brightly glowing gas lantern at her feet. And she's saying, I didn't know, I'm sorry. And that is when Thomas enters the room, and he slams open the door. He pushes her against the window. He is like crushing her windpipe, strangling her, and he is saying, we trusted you. And I think this is interesting too, something you maybe missed because you were listening.
Yeah.
There's certain words that are all caps
Yeah.
in this chapter. And he says, we trusted you. We accepted you into our home. And this is when she knees him in the stomach, and then she swings the hammer, claw end first, into the side of his face, and lodges the hammer into his jaw. But he never screams when that happens. And I noted that because I thought that was really, really weird. Like, he just put on that whole display when Paige was killed, but then he gets the claw end of a hammer into his face and makes no sounds.
Yeah.
Now that we have gotten to this part, my theory is that Eve is a replacement and she has been replaced by Allison. But I think that she has like a rare ability to hurt these individuals that not other people have, which I think that is why, because we don't exactly know where in timeline, what time this is happening when she's doing this whole accident thing, right? So my thing is then we see the older man later on, he's got the scar on the jaw. You know what I'm saying? And he's afraid of her.
Everyone's afraid of her.
Everybody's afraid of her. So I'm wondering if this kind of happened, like, not that she is the villain, but, like, this is kind of happening at a different spot in the timeline, and everything that we've seen is kind of wibbly-wobbly around, and, like, she now has hurt Thomas when she doesn't, like, and she has the ability to hurt Thomas, which is why, like, people are, like, afraid of her.
Well, she killed Paige, who, if we're all to be believed, has been around for how long?
Yeah. And so, like, because she's got, like, the scar on her neck, so, like, she could be, like, not reanimated, but, like, essentially, like, reused and, like, all of this stuff. And that's kind of, like, why she's this kind of, I don't know.
I'm fully on board with that.
That's my thought.
I'm fully on board.
So,
I love it. Thomas is dying. And so she thinks she's, like, done enough, so she decides that she's going to run away. And then at the last second, Thomas's eyes snap up, and he says, "Where are you going, Eve?" and smiles. So that confirms that it's not real.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's not real, and that's now confirmed. And so she keeps running, and then she goes up to the attic.
Because I think, like, you know, before she whacks him with the hammer, he's like, we trusted you. We accepted you into our home. Like, we brought you into this ritual with us here, right? And then to me, after she whacks him, and then he says the things that you're about ready to say, like, I feel like that's him being, like, angry and just kind of this, like, oh, fuck, she accidentally, like, hurt me, and ow, I'm in pain.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he's surprised that she hurt her.
His mask slipped.
Exactly.
Right.
Because she hurt him. Sorry.
And I also think that what you're saying ties into perfectly when she first re-enters the home after the cop incident, the puppet thing again. It's almost like that was Thomas the puppet that had a hammer put into his face because he didn't scream or react at all. And then she runs away, gets away, and he somehow gets up to the attic even though there's a hammer in his face. And then instead of calling her Eve, he quote, booms like a mad apostle. Biblical. And he says, Evelyn Patricia Palmer, we gave you life. We were here when the light of day was born. We sowed the forest. We built the foundations. And then she kills him. Well, she swings the hammer into his head. And the
I feel like she should have killed him. Like, if she would have stayed, but she gets stopped by a cop at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
If
he was real, he'd be dead.
Correct.
Is what I think. Yeah.
And I feel like had she continued and finished him off, maybe she would have won. But maybe in a different timeline she wins, and that's why they're scared.
It would also bring in, like, he maybe, like, brought in the cop, like, while he was, like...
Well, because we know that they control the cops, too, because Officer Kieran is not real.
Yeah. So, like, he's actually being hurt, and he's almost dying on the floor, so that's why he's like, oh, I gotta bring in this cop. Poof, cop. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry. That's my
And
thought.
Evelyn Patricia Palmer, I think, is very interesting because he uses her middle name, and the only other time we see her middle name is inscripted on the Bible that her parents gave her.
It's also when the cop pulls her over, he calls her
Yeah,
Evelyn.
picture license. Yeah.
Mhm.
But other than like reading a government, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The only time we've seen it in the house is a Bible that her parents gave her. And so it's weird that then Thomas says, "We gave you life," because what do parents do?
Give you life.
I wondered about that because it's like it specifically mentions that she was raised religious, but that she no longer is religious anymore. So that I was wondering, I was like, girl.
Is Eve even alive?
Yeah. I don't know.
Because when Officer Kieran interrogates Andrew, there's no record of Andrew ever existing, but there are records of Eve existing, but
her parent not through her.
But okay, so after this scene, we get an interview with Eve as
yes,
Emma, and in that timeline, Eve does not exist. And in multiple points in this book, they talk about the locket, and inside the locket is the only known photo of Eve Palmer ever existing. So I think she's effectively erased in this timeline. They effectively erase her whole background. Her parents don't remember her. This is when we meet Charlotte for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not together. And in the interview that we get after this scene, Eve does the non-blinking. She starts to spiral. They're telling her everything she's saying does not exist. They're telling her they followed up. She's saying, and she is very persuasive, and she's very like, no, like, here are my parents, here is this, here is that, to the point where the person interrogating her, which is Kiernan, I believe, is like, okay.
Yeah.
But ultimately, she does not succeed. She's on trial for Paige's murder, and she gets put into the insane asylum. And the insane asylum is a small room that overlooks a pond with the beige walls, and she is in and out the whole time, which is a flashback to that scene where she fell and hurt her head off the banister.
Mm-hmm.
And we're now seeing the consequences of her failing her part of the timeline, right? We're now seeing her in this insane asylum. They're drugging her. She's still cognitively aware that she knows she's in the wrong timeline. She's refusing to play the game. But only when she actually starts to play the game does she get things. Visitors, internet time, outside time, everything, right? And Thomas comes to visit her. He's still alive. And he gives her the locket, which has the only known picture of Eve Palmer. And I think it's before Thomas arrives or right after, she sees a white ant circling on her ceiling.
Yeah, yes. And I think it's also interesting that during the interview, it's like they're making a documentary about this. Because it's like the producers and the director are making all these choices about what part of the interview they're going to show and all this stuff. And then when Thomas goes to see her, he calls Charlotte Charlie, which when Emma was having dinner, Emma, was having dinner with the family, she said, "Where's Charlie?" And they say, "Do you mean Charlotte?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, they will not call her Charlie. And then at the end of the book, Thomas, because he called her Eve back in the house, and now in the hospital, he's calling Charlotte Charlie.
So he knows what timeline she's from.
He's fucking with her.
Mm-hmm.
And like you just said, the very last page of the book, she pulls out the envelope that Thomas leaves for her, and there's a locket, and then there's the photo in the locket, where when Paige was wearing it, there was no photo. Now she has it, again. The one that Charlie took when we first started dating, the one she put up in her gallery on that rain-soaked day in Rochester, the only known photo of Eve Palmer. And except for the last document, that's the last page of the book.
Mm-hmm.
The only known photo of Eve Palmer.
Yeah.
Crazy. This man's brain is wild.
So she's like gone, but not gone. I mean, she's gone in a lot of different ways. Like, She's in a psych ward now.
I just think that it is crazy that this book is 308 pages. Like, this is such a, like, how do you fit all of this?
We've been
into
talking about this
308?
for 3 years.
Yeah.
Goodness.
This was like probably the most. I've only been doing book club for about a year, but I think this is the most like intense book that we've had, where there's so much to break down, digest, but it's still like no matter how much you do it, you're
scratching the surface.
Yeah,
like we've been talking for 2 hours, almost 3 hours,
Yeah.
and I still feel like we skipped over stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And that's crazy. Like, we're being very thorough.
Yeah.
It's wild. And the fact that, like, it was originally one part is crazy to me. So, and I know we've been here for a million years, and Liz has a family to raise, and I have a man to feed. We will wrap this up with a wild document that is at the very end. And it's a transcript of a post on highstrangenessforums.net. Which I need to look up.
I'm gonna do it right now.
Look that up.
I can.
Liz, wait, are you sure you haven't wanted to use your phone for any of this yet?
I feel like this is safe. High
This is-
strange.
high-strangeness-forums.net.
Sounds educational.net.
Not .gov. .net.
Yeah.
Amazing. Let me know what it says. While you guys are looking,
High strangeness.
high strangeness forums, but there's dash. Or
High-strangeness.
Dash.
forums.net. Ew, it's creepy. Okay. The post is titled, "My partner went missing, but everyone is telling me she never existed to begin with." And this is from, we don't know, because everything is redacted, but we are very sure. I'm very sure it's Charlie. And she says, "I never thought I'd be posting on a site like this. I don't know where else to turn." She's talked to family, police, the FBI, everything. She says that one day she returned home and found our recently purchased property looking as though it had been abandoned for decades. My partner was gone. Only our dog remained wandering around the nearby woods. All other evidence of my life, with name redacted, including photos, texts, emails, all of it, vanished overnight. The authorities, my friends and family, everyone in my life insists that name redacted isn't real. I've nearly been institutionalized multiple times, but I'm not giving up. If anyone has any idea, information, no matter how outlandish, please help. For more details, contact me here, email redacted. And the Morse code says names. And so I feel like that's a clue for us that she's looking for the wrong name.
Okay, yeah.
So tell me about strange forums.
It looks like there's like a couple of like topics on it, and like I went for a walk the other night and saw something I can't explain. I think it was a cryptid. Or I had the worst dream of my life at 12 years old. Sometimes I feel like I never woke up. Another one is I'm scared of hallways now. And then so it seems like it's just like a cryptids. Tell me your real life experience with aliens. Like it just looks like it's
so essentially like conspiracy Reddit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And she says that she's been nearly institutionalized. So what if we both put our grippy socks on and kissed in the monkey forum?
Over the broken lantern.
I'll be the one in the hospital gown.
I'll be the one with ants in my teeth.
Oh my god! You would.
Oh my god! I'll be the one.
And I will visit you with our tinfoil caps on.
Yes.
Amazing.
No, I think that Charlie that posted on the Reddit is the only real Charlie. I think she left one day while she was gone. Thomas came in and started the series of unfortunate events, and thus we now have what we have. I think Eve has been over 1 million timelines. She did not fall into order like she was supposed to. I think if she would have pretended to be Emma, she could have done better, but she could not keep the face. And this is her punishment, and when she learns her lesson, she'll be allowed back at the house, which is why Thomas is still giving her kind of like treats. Like, okay, you've been taking your medicine. You haven't been going crazy. Here's some treats. so
Yeah,
you can
you're,
come
you're
home.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I
What?
know,
Yeah.
you know. And I think Jenny's the same way. I think Kai is the same way. I think Newton is the same way. Paige was the same way. They just did what they were supposed to do, and they were allowed to stay out of the insane asylum.
Because I feel like even in kind of like the in-between moments of even with the families we're going throughout the book, I feel like, and maybe this is just trauma train, but like it just felt like they were, like he was an abusive father and like they were afraid of him. Like even when like the mom was like whatever and like she was whatever and like he was being like, oh, I don't drink, blah, blah, blah. It still like very felt like they were all oriented around him.
It was giving narcissistic youth pastor.
Yes,
Yes.
it was. Very much so. Yes, yes, yes. And like it just gave me ick vibes, even just when things were happy hunky dory. So
Yeah, I agree. And so I think that hopefully, if we get another book, we will watch Eve hopefully navigate maybe as a big player on the field. And I think whatever she does next is going to potentially give her this notoriety of being a scary being in this nexus. She may not be able to ever escape the nexus, but she will establish herself as a player because now she knows. And I think trying to figure out how to play is what's the scary part.
Yeah. Truly, in book club, I mean, like, we've been in book club for a long time, several of them. I have not read anything that has captivated me, especially in this genre. We read a lot of mystery thriller. They're so like digestible. You can just do a million of them. They have a template. You know what's gonna happen. Even the horror conspiracies, like you get a vibe of what's going on here. Never at any point did I feel 100% confident in what I was reading.
I still don't feel 100% confident in what
I still have no idea.
Yeah.
I read it thrice. And each time I've come to different conclusions. And since we've been talking, I've come to different conclusions. And I think that was intentional. I think that this is just a book that is used to like torment horror fans. And like it's so genius to me.
It's literally like the gift that keeps on giving. Like that's literally, the more you digest it, the more you get out of it. Like when you said you started researching, go down more rabbit holes, websites, all of that, like encrypting different, different
Like
languages and all that. Like like it.
Websites, emails, Google Drives. I'm looking at photos of old house. Like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
It truly, truly, truly gave me the feeling of being like 14 and on like no sleep Reddit again and like freaking myself out and like it felt so fun to just be that insane conspiracy theory tinfoil hat person again.
Yeah, it was just one really long creepypasta.
Truly.
I'm intrigued how they'll even make it a movie.
I can't wait.
To me, I can't even like
it's gonna be scary.
It. Like there's so many. It's like if you see the movie, it's not even gonna do the book justice. I mean, that's most likely always how it is, but there's just so much to it. Like,
you're not wrong. I think I said this when we were just like talking in book club about it, but it really was giving me the Barbarian vibes. The movie with the Airbnb and Justin Long.
Oh yes.
And they go to the basement, and there's that creepy large lady, and the basement ends up being all those tunnels.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think it's gonna be scary as shit.
Yeah.
That movie got me.
I also, for some reason, I don't know why this is, but I'm just getting, what's that movie? It's like Dante's Inferno, and they're underneath the Paris catacombs.
As Above, So Below.
As Above, So Below.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't know why I also get vibes from this as well.
Liz is just gone. She's not seen these. She won't do it.
Yeah.
As Above, So Below would send Elizabeth into a tizzy.
I watched it before.
She would be admitted.
I watched that because it's with the catacombs. We watched that before we went to Paris because we went down the catacombs. So we like watched that first. So then we went down there. It was
I now have 50 million follow-up questions after we are done about the Paris catacombs.
Why? I would watch it.
This is why at the end of the horror movie we're all in, I will be okay. And I will be mourning you guys. Because would I ever go below knowing things? No. And also, Bailey, looking at you, would I ever investigate shit? No, because The minute Thomas knocked on my fucking door, no one's home. Sorry.
I'm
I
not
agree.
doing it. You're not about to catch me.
No.
Our Amazon spy, I can't say her name because she'll answer us, has like a button that you can press, and if I see someone at my door, I have an automatic thing that pops up, and it goes, "Sorry, we are not interested."
I love that.
And every time I
That is what would happen.
Mhm.
And I'm also sorry, but none of this. And if I was pulled into these alternate realities, oh, you want to call me Emma? My name is Emma Marie, and I am a Libra. Whatever you need from me,
Oh my
because
God.
I'm sorry, Eve's survival instincts at this point, non-existent. Girl,
Yeah.
I need you to pretend.
She was listening to Allison's note. Get them. Well, first of all, she was listening to the man in the cabin. Get them to leave whatever is necessary. And then right after that, she sees the note. Wait till his mask slips. So she's like antagonizing him, and she thinks that she's doing what people are telling her to do.
And she's not even good at it. She's not even good at it. You gain her trust.
Can't even kill him.
Then you do the shit. She's like, oh, 5 minutes of Emma where I'm clearly not well, and then I'm gonna attempt to win this. Like, girl, I need you to be better.
Yeah.
Also, I've seen a couple of horror movies. I've seen The Descent. I've seen Insidious. I've seen Paranormal Activity. All of those things have taught me to not do scary shit.
They do. Those are good movies, though, to like
Anchor
with
yourself
this.
with.
Yeah.
Yes. Will I be watching this? Yes, because there's specific scenes that I can see in my head, like her going into the tunnels of the hospital, the scene with the being at the end of the stairs.
Heather's
I can see
house.
Yes, but this book scared me shitless. So
Yeah.
I cannot
Truly.
wait to let you guys in on our special guest next week, because none of these questions will be answered.
Can't wait.
Oh my gosh. I cannot believe that we all, and you all, our listeners and viewers, have been with us for now 4 hours
Of your lives.
just about this book. And there's more to come next week with maybe the only person that had the potential to answer the questions if the Easter egg couldn't get any bigger. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for
we
coming.
loved it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yes. I feel like we didn't help accomplish anything, but
No,
we were
did.
here for the
No,
ride.
You did.
We loved it.
We were also here for the
Yeah.
ride. This is, honestly, just call this Marcus Cleaver Gets Literary, because I have no idea. I am not an expert anymore.
Yeah.
So I hope that you will join us when The Caretaker comes out next year.
Ooh, I'm excited for that. I think it'll be so creepy.
So I'm excited. Liz, do you want to tell the people where they can find us?
If you're not following us on social media, we are Liz and Liz Get Literary on all platforms. Follow us. If you have your own conspiracies, if we got something right or something wrong, email us at lizandlizgetlit@gmail.com. Stay in your reality and stay cool, friends. Bye.